There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
What's up, welcome into this post-game pod edition of the Program Guys podcast. My name is Mason Princeton, with you by Marcall Matt Gann. No Patrick Hirschberger or Ryan Tyson this week. Today is Sunday, September 8th. Be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can find us on all of our social media at Program Guys with the Z on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where you can find us. Boys, we're back.
We're back.
The Iowa Hawkeyes beat the Houston Cougars 16-12. Sorry, the Oklahoma Sooners.
Yes.
You goof.
You
goofer.
Yeah. Beat the Houston Cougars 16-12. And folks, it was ugly. And I think anyone with eyes knew it was ugly. If you still have eyes after watching that game, it was quite funny. I was with program guy Connor Borland walking out of the stadium, and Toby Rowland is on the postgame show, and he goes, we'll be right back recapping this Oklahoma win. We think they won. I don't know. And
barely.
Hey, they won. But on the positive side of things, they won. We looked about as bad as you could possibly look, and that is the easiest broad stroke statement in the world, right? We looked as bad as we could possibly look, and we'll get into it. But to look that bad, come home with a W, let's keep that perspective as well, right? At the end of the day, you walk away with the one thing that matters. At the end of the year, when they're looking at our record, the fact that we only won by 4 points isn't going to be the thing that determines anything, bowl placement, seeding, anything like that.
Yeah. Matt, your thoughts real quick before we dive full in.
Just to give kind of a brief overview before we dive in, like you said, I think that the main things that stuck out to me was OU looked like a football team that lost offensive linemen to the portal and to the draft, had a whole new offensive coordinator come in and system, and a quarterback that just started his third game. I think those things really showed a lot of prevalence in this one that really just kind of filtered out throughout the game of why we might saw exactly what we saw, even though it looked pretty good the first week against the Owls. I think you're starting to see a little bit of rustiness from all the overhaul that happened from a year ago.
Quick recount of the stats here. Houston had more first downs than OU, 18-15. Houston, more yards than OU, 318-252. They threw for more yards, 260-174. OU led in rushing with only 78 yards to Houston's 58. Houston, more penalties, 8 for 70. OU, 5 for 67. 2 turnovers for Houston as well that arguably lost them the game. So I thought the defense looked fantastic. I think the offense, like you said, Matt, showed the growing pains that I think we're going to get for a little bit. It's just a weird game. It was a weird feeling the whole night inside the stadium. Like the vibes were good heading into the game, and then you get into the game and, the first drive stalls 3 and out so quickly, and you're just like, oh, deflated. Then the fumble on the punt return, and then we get it. Yeah, I know he didn't touch it. But we then score right after that, and you're like, okay, here we go. We're fine. Like we're locked in. And they looked out of all sorts, and any sort of offensive game plan that they had, whether it was execution or not, it wasn't good. And I think the offensive line, I was telling this to Connor, I could see from the stands, I'm sure you guys can see from the TV copy, the offensive line got no push all night long. It didn't matter if it was a run or a pass. They had no shot at pushing anybody off the line, and that's pretty telling to me.
That's what I noticed, Mason. I would say the pass protection was a lot better this week. Jackson Arnold had a lot more time, more cleaner pockets, but I think it was Jackson Arnold panicking a little bit, not going through all of his reads and running a little too earlier. And again, I think that's the third game starter in him. He just doesn't have that patience to find some of those crossers and find those guys that can get open. But the O line, it really just kind of hamstrings Seth Luttrell when you have no run game. And to your point, there's no push up front. I mean, every time I felt like Javante Barnes or whoever was getting carries would just get stalled right at the line.
Yeah.
And so then you just have to drop back. And Houston knows if you're not going to run the ball, then Jackson Arnold's got to throw 30 to 40 times just to make headway. So felt like the offense was definitely one dimensional last night.
Yeah, and to your point about Javante Barnes, he was the only back that even looked capable last night. Gavin Sawchuk goes 4 carries for 4 yards. Doesn't really look like the Gavin Sawchuk we saw last year. He's not really finding the slivers that he was able to find last year. Now, I agree with Mason's point. I think we've all made comments on it in our texts and stuff like that. Like, man, that O-line just doesn't get any push at all. And so you're going to need someone at running back who can do something dynamic with the ball, make something happen in spite of the offensive line. Javante Barnes was the closest thing last night, but Taylor Tatum only gets 1 carry for 6 yards, and I think it comes late in the game. So I'm just a little unsure about the strategy there, about the plan there. Sort of similar in the wide receiver room. After showing us that he can play last week, Andrell Anthony doesn't log a snap. I believe I didn't see him out there. The receiving distribution is super crazy. Deion Burks has his 9 for 53. That's not nearly enough yardage. He was open deep a handful of times, and the throws just weren't there from Jackson. But then you go after that, Jake Roberts has 3 catches. 2 of them were designed, and they were great balls, great catches. They were great plays, but 2 of those are designed for Jake Roberts. Why aren't we designing more plays for the guys that were, Brennan Thompson only has 2 catches. And I know that I'm sort of the naysayer on Brennan Thompson, but if he's your wide receiver 1, let him go be your wide receiver 1. I don't understand why it's got to be so difficult. We don't have easy buttons in the offense for Jackson Arnold to hit right now, I think. And it's become clear that it's an offense that needs some easy buttons installed so that we can just pick up a quick 5, pick up a quick 7 here and there when you need to.
Nothing looked easy on offense. Everything looked difficult. I want to say this about Jackson Arnold, and I'm not here last night's performance was not on Jackson in its entirety. Look, did he help it? Not really. But it's not on him. He had no run game to work with, like we talked about. But a lot of those balls that he threw deep, they didn't even have a shot. Like there wasn't even close. I recall one ball down a sideline that was 3 yards out of bounds, and it's third down. Give the guy a shot, and it's just not even close. The deep ball to Deion Burks was overthrown by like 10 yards, I think. It didn't look good. And the arm talent's there. He overthrew a 5-yard out route to the field side, to the wide side of the field. I mean, that's a throw you throw a million times in your sleep. I just don't. I didn't get it. And the thing that worries me, does Nick Anderson come in and fix all this? I sure as hell don't think so. I don't. I think he helps. I don't think he fixes what I saw with Jackson's indecisiveness. That's only going to come with more reps.
Well, and I think it's part of the coaching question, right? Is call an offense that makes it a little bit easier on your quarterback. At the same time, what can Seth Luttrell do when the offensive line can't push anyone around on run plays? And even if they played better in pass pro last night, still has Jackson Arnold worried every time he drops back that someone's going to hit him before he can get the ball out. I think that you're seeing that skittishness from someone who got hit a little bit more last week than he expected to. Matt, what do you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, he got hit, 10 plus times and got a lot of hurries in the Temple game, I think, from what I saw. So I totally get it. Again, they did held up a little bit better, but we were down 2 offensive linemen last night with Hickman and Hatchett both in street clothes last night, and then obviously a depleted wide receiver core. So I think we're really starting to see them starting to rack up a little bit, and this is just not the time for it as we continue to get closer and closer to SEC play, especially next week with the Tulane team that was dealing with Kansas State. I mean, it's going to be another tough one next week. So can this offense change in 1 week? I mean, to your point, Mason, Nick Anderson's a dynamic wide receiver. We need somebody to help the wide receiver room, and we were seeing Zion or Zion Reagans and some of those guys. Where was Petaway? I mean, where are these guys that are supposed to be so dynamic? And
why are we hearing about them all week?
Seth Littrell is going to have to figure it out, especially what really concerns me as of right now is the third down conversion. As of last night, I still think we're the bottom, if not the worst, in the FBS. In Temple, we were 1-12. Last night, we went 4 for 14. But that also just goes to show, since we have no run game to pick up 2, 3, 4 yards, we're making second down and even third down. We're already behind the chains, and we're just expecting Jackson Arnold to come up with a long 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. So we're not putting ourselves in any positions to succeed in this offense. I'm just not sure. And there's definitely not a silver bullet. I'm not sure what they're going to figure out in 1 week or 2 weeks from now.
Every planned action by the offense is lateral movement. Everything is going left or going right. It's a sweep pass. It's a screen, getting the ball out. And I just don't understand why we're not. You don't even have to go deep every play. Deion Burks is just as dangerous 15 yards down the field as he is going 40 yards down the field. Just find a way to get these guys open through scheme. And maybe we've been spoiled over the years in having pretty effective offensive coordinators and effective quarterback play. Because Dylan Gabriel, for all the grief we gave him, didn't really get rattled quite like we saw from Jackson last night, right? He's just an older dude. So you got to hope that they're going to come up with some go-tos that will make a little bit more sense than what we saw last night. And maybe that's where Nick Anderson helps, because he's got such gravity just by being on the field that you can really draw up some easier stuff for the other guys, I think.
Teddy Lehman had the point that you just made, Mark, in the post-game show as I was in the car driving home. The intermediate passing game is non-existent. It's not there. They didn't even try. And the amount of screen passes was absurd. Like,
doesn't make sense.
It was so crazy. There were so many. And if that's what you're relying on with the wide receiver core that you have, that's not
place.
That's not a good place to be at all. The last thing that I have on the offense, Taylor Tatum, 1 carry, 6 yards. The dude came in as we were struggling to run the ball, immediately gets a 6-yard gain, positive gain. We were tackled for a loss 7 times. If I have a running back come in and he gets 6 yards on his lone carry, that dude needs more carries, because positive yards were hard to come by in the run game. And if that guy's going to come in and give me any sort of positive yards, that's what I'm going to take. He needs more carries, because if Gavin Sawchuk, to your point earlier, Mark, is not going to be the Gavin Sawchuk that we saw last year, somebody's got to give me some kind of thing. Javonte Barnes, 100% had the most juice out of all the running backs last night. He seemed to be the one who had the most want to, I guess, if that's the right phrase I want to use.
And a burst along with a strength to actually get through some of the little holes that were there. That's where we saw Gavin unable to kind of get through anything. He's just not as strong as Javonte looks.
Yeah. So I just think Taylor Tatum's got to get some more carries. I'm not telling you he needs to be your featured back, but I think he's shown you enough to give you yards in a positive manner that he deserves to get a little more carries, even if it's just the in between the tackle carries that are going to have to put your head down. You're going to get touched after 2 yards and try to fight like that. I'm fine with that.
Where's Caleb Hicks too? That's someone that for now going on 2 years, he looks incredible. Everyone raves about him, and he doesn't see the field at all. And between his kind of talent, Taylor Tatum's kind of talent, it's confusing to me that we're not finding more dynamic ways to get these guys the ball.
Yeah.
Matt, let me ask you guys real quick on a scale 1 to 10, 10 being like severely panicked, 1 being got all the confidence in the world. Where do you guys feel like the Oklahoma offense is at this point?
I'm about a 7.5, probably. Because I don't know, you saw them, even though they struggled week 1, they still put up points, right? We saw yesterday a lot of highly ranked teams kind of struggle, not to the extent that OU
it was a
did,
weird
but it
weekend
was
for
a weird
college
day.
football.
Kansas State struggled with Tulane.
Go
Alabama,
Irish.
yeah, Notre Dame, you could lose at home to freaking Northern Illinois. Alabama struggled before they turned it on. I think they were 14-13 for a while. So I mean, it was a weird day in college football. I kind of chalk it up to that a little bit, but if they go out there and they struggle against Tulane, I'm going to be at a 10, because that's 3 weeks in a row that I don't feel good about any sort of game plan that Seth Luttrell's putting together. I'm not going to let him off the hook. The guys on the field didn't play very well. I don't think Seth Luttrell put them in any position to succeed either. So I think that dude, he deserves a lot of. Yeah, he deserves a lot of credit because that opening drive play script, what the little F was that? Jet sweep, screen, and then like
all horizontal movement.
It was terrible. It was awful.
Nothing designed to get down the field.
It's supposed to be your best plays. It's supposed to be your best plays that you practiced all week. And that's what it is. It's brutal. So bad. Sorry, Mark. Go.
Well, it just so to answer Matt's question, I'm at a 6, and it's because I believe that Nick Anderson's going to unlock quite a bit more for the offense when he returns. Suddenly, when Nick Anderson returns, your guys aren't just sub-6 footers, right? Mm-hmm. We forget that Jaleel Farouk is 6'1". Andrew Anthony has height and didn't play last night. Nick Anderson is 6'4". Jaden Gibson should be out here at 6'5". Everyone who got hurt has been a big guy. Everyone who's stuck around is a little guy. And we're seeing the effects of that a little bit with, why is Zion Reagan's on the field? No disrespect to him, but he should be like a gadgety kind of guy right now. Right. And the offense isn't in a place to be running gadgety plays. We need to be figuring out how to be successful with an offense. I think that's going to be where Nick Anderson comes into play a little bit. I mentioned the gravity he brings to you, just everything you want to execute on that side of the ball, and how a simple thing like moving him from one side of the field to the other can show a defense's hand. Stuff like that is super beneficial for a young quarterback. That said, all of the issues in the run game have persisted. I don't know how adding a wide receiver really helps that very much. The offensive line, while it looked better in pass pro last night, still is not going to stand up to much tough end competition unless we see much better play against Tulane. It's worrying, man. And I haven't even mentioned really Jackson Arnold's play, and that's sort of the Pandora's box of all of this, because if you want to see someone who is struggling because of his surroundings, you can see that, he's a young guy, all of that. If you want to see someone who is just not getting it done, you can kind of see that too. Mm-hmm. You can see David Carr in this already. So, 6. Matt, what's your number?
Yeah, I was going to say a 7. I think it all starts with the offensive line. And if they can't get healthy and get glued and get it together, they just have no nastiness about them. I just always go back to the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line a few years ago with Ben Powers and those guys, Cody Ford. They're just nasty. They want to get after people. They just want to push around people and bully them. I just don't see that out of the offensive line so far. Maybe with some of these guys getting healthy, maybe we can get a second push, but it's going to start with the offensive line. That's really going to take us as far as this offense can go.
Let us know down below in the comments what you thought of the offensive performance before we move on to the defense. We read every single one of your comments. Answer Matt's question as well down below in the comments. Love to see where you guys' heads are at in terms of your concern level. Over on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, what a game for them. point blank, Danny Stutzman led the team in tackles with 15, and he deserves a lot of praise. I think he played very well. But the four of Dominic Williams, Grayson Halton, DeJoun Terry, and Jaden Jackson, those guys might be my MVPs. They were a problem all night long for that Houston offensive line. And it may not show up in terms of sacks and all that, but I mean, Grayson Halton with the safety, at a massive point in time. I thought Jane Jackson looked good in terms of his get off and penetration. I was kind of watching those guys, but they were great in the run game. They only allowed how many rush yards to Houston? I just said it.
58 on 35 carries.
Yeah, man. 1.7 yards a carry. 1.7 yards a carry. Like they looked fantastic in every sense of the word. Really liked the play from the back end as well. I think we played really off to start the game, and that was kind of weird to me. Like in terms of the secondary, gave a lot of cushion, and Houston was taking advantage of that early, hitting like hitch routes and hitting slants and stuff like that. But we figured it out towards the end.
I really think, man, last night was the kind of defense that is going to keep you in these games. That it's exactly what we saw last night, right? The defense kept us in the game all throughout the game. I mean, field goals galore from Houston. I know that Donovan Smith gets one off to Manjack the fourth. That's an amazing name. What a guy. What a guy. But the defense looked incredible. Danny's in on every play, even the ones where he's not making the tackle. He's the one that's like first guy there and chasing him with his long, crazy arms to push him into a safety diving down or a corner trying to come make a play. I don't think you can say enough good things about, again, like you said, the defensive line played incredibly well. Grayson Halton looked great. Dominic Williams looked like every bit the player we brought him in to be last night. Woody Washington, absolute BS PI call on him. I thought that
bad.
Strong defensive play. And if that's PI, then you can call it PI every single play, every single game. So I have trouble with that. But he played really well. The safeties played well. Robert Spears-Jennings was in on several run plays. You know what's weird is Billy Bowman played great on defense, but both him and Peyton Bowen on the return game, they're doing weird stuff right now. Catching the ball in weird places, not judging it correctly, tracking it. No. Yeah. We gotta figure something out there.
It was a weird night.
Defensively, man, everything's in place. They just need the offense to find its groove.
Completely agree, Matt.
Yeah, the defense had to be what it was last night, or OU when it won this game. They were the one that made the major impacts, and they're the only side of the ball that scored points in the second half. That's pretty embarrassing. I mean, I look at the scoreboard or through the quarters, and Houston scores 6 in the third, and we get 0, and in the fourth, the only points we get the entire half is a Grayson Halton safety, which obviously was probably the biggest play of the game. And man, Halton's come on the first 2 weeks. I mean, his stock just continues to rise along with these other defensive linemen. But I think to both your points, all 3 levels of the defense were incredible, especially in the run blocking or the run stopping and just making Donovan Smith throw the football. I mean, granted, he was 24 of 28 and had a lot of easy throws on the outside, to your point, a lot of cushion given. But if we're going to do a break bend but don't break mentality, I'm okay with that. If we're going to give up field goals, we just need the offense to score touchdowns. And hopefully we can get to that point. But the defense was on the field for over 35 minutes last night, and they only gave up 12
so
points.
Much.
That's very impressive. Now, they won't be able to do that against a Tennessee or an SEC offense, especially if you see how Nico is playing down there in Tennessee. But it shows me and gives me a lot of confidence that the defense and Zach Alley knows what they're doing and what strengths they have. and that will only continue moving forward. You would have liked to see a little bit more sacks and tackle for losses, especially for a Houston team that gave up 6 sacks and like 10 plus tackle for losses last week. So I felt like we let their offensive line get a little bit better of us last night, considering the fact. But all in all, give up 12 points, be on the field that long. That's exactly what you want a Britt Vipples defense to look like.
You saw Danny and Kip Lewis start. Jaron Kanak came in. Kobe McKenzie was in. Lewis Carter was in at times. The linebacking core had a lot of bodies in there.
A lot of depth.
They rotated all those guys in. But to your point, Matt, kind of about the defense keeping you in games, the one point that I want to make about this, and then I'll kind of be done parlaying this into something about the offense. We don't need the offense to be great. We just need them to be good, because if the defense is going to play like that, I don't need 40 points a game from my offense. If you can give me 28 or 30, that's going to win you games if the defense plays like that. Now, are there going to be nights where they have off nights and, they play Tennessee or something, and you're going to need, probably 35 or 42 to win the game? Yeah, probably, but they'll still play pretty well. I don't think us as OU fans, we're so used to the offense being so great and record setting and all of that, and Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and all of that stuff. We're not that team right now. And I don't know when we will be again, but the shift in mentality to being a more defensive centered team, I think we as a fan base kind of need to lean into that a little more. And yeah, we can still have high expectations for the offense, but maybe we need to lower those a little and say, hey, maybe that game that we saw week 1 is what we need to be shooting for. Maybe 40 points a game or the low 40s or the high 30s, that's fine. And we're not going to score 50 a game. And our defense will keep us in it at that point.
I agree with that, but that's not what happened last night. Right?
Yeah.
Like the defense did everything last night, but you can't expect them, as you said, to handle business like that against better teams. You can't expect them to hold Tennessee to 12, Ole Miss to 12, Alabama to 12. Keep on naming the teams. The problem with the offense, I'm with you on everything you said. If we're just getting out executed, right? Mm-hmm. If the guys on the other side are just better players than our players, then that's the game, right? Seth Luttrell's play calling leaves a lot to be desired, and I think that we can say that without any thought towards what the team looked like under Lincoln Riley or any previous coach, right? I think it's okay to demand a little bit of greatness from Jackson Arnold, who we've all heralded as the next great Oklahoma quarterback, and expect a little bit of efficiency, competency from Seth Luttrell, even facing absences along his offensive skill positions. And, they're figuring it out on the offensive line. It doesn't really matter. You're playing Houston. Your backups would all be starting for Houston. So they should be very capable of beating up on the guys starting for Houston. So it's not that I disagree with your point, Mason, but I think that last night was a much worse showing from the offense than even that 28 that you're talking about. A clean 28, I'm fine with, right? Yeah. Give me 31 points and Houston scores 12 last night. No complaints at all. That's a totally different ball game. But that is not what we saw, and I think they've got a lot to figure out on the offensive side. Change my 6 to a 7.
Yeah. Anything else on defense, Matt?
Nothing on defense. Really liked what I saw. Zach Alley should get another game ball for the performance last night. I mean, absolute great stuff from him. 2 weeks back to back.
I hate to keep bringing it up, but the post-game show on the radio as I'm driving home, they interview Zach Alley, and again, sounds just like Brent Venables, but they talked to him about like the defensive mentality when you go back there and you're kind of pinned behind you, and Zach Alley was kind of just like, if we're out there and we got an inch of grass, you tell me which way it is and we're gonna cover it or we're gonna defend it. And he was like fired up about it, and that's the vibe you got from all of the defense. Like any position they were put into, they were ready to F and go, and they're like, let's go out there and do it. And that's the kind of mentality you need.
The defense has responded to the kind of shift in mentality, right? Mm-hmm. They really represent that here in year 3 for Brent Venables. What's it? 12 points this week, 3 points last week. Come on now.
Great.
That they are holding themselves to a standard and playing with pride in a way that we really need to see the offense do, because sometimes they don't even look like they're giving maximum effort.
Yeah. Touching quick on the special teams, Tyler Keltner got to make that field goal. Anything around there, you've got to make that field goal. Low key, MVP of the game, Luke Elzinga. I said it mid game. The way he flipped the field, he had 5 down inside the 20. That's a big night for him.
He played well.
He deserves a ton of credit, and people won't give punters credit, and I get it, but he had a fantastic game. He deserves to have his name kind of brought up because he did a really good job. He went out there and did his job well.
Defense isn't in the positions they're in to succeed unless Luke Elzinga is able to kick the ball as well as he did. Matt?
Yeah, he set up the safety. I mean, he downed it right into to the 5, and that led to the safety, which was again probably the play of the game.
Yeah, great point.
Coach Doug Deacon, special teams coach. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tyler Keltner misses the kick, but I am always going to blame that on the kicker versus the special teams coach. I just am.
Yeah, always. I was a little more hostile last night than I should have been. I'm not done with the Peyton Bowen, Billy Bowman experiment at returner. I understand. I see the vision. It was tough last night. We already kind of touched on it. They got to be better. I don't know if it was a lighting thing, like maybe it was a night sky, just different. Couldn't track the ball as well, but they both,
I guess, Houston
were weird.
I was about to say Houston didn't, but Houston did muff one.
So I don't know. I'm not fully off board yet. Last night I was too rash and grumpy, and I was like, I'm done with it. I don't want to see it anymore, and I don't feel that way. I think I see the vision. I see the vision. Just wasn't a good night.
Matt, what do you think about the return spots? I'm just
trying to figure out how Billy Bowman hasn't talked to Jada Coleman and figuring out how to track these balls. I mean, come on.
That's true.
What she does for a specialty.
Also,
in softball.
Also, a random Billy Bowman looks like he's put on weight in a good way. Like, that dude looks noticeably bigger, like, in person. He looks a lot. Yeah, he looks
Maurice Jones-Drew, and he's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, his arms are like way bigger than they were last year. Like, credit to him. But Peyton Bowen, 20-yard punt return. That one was fun. That was a good one. That was a good one. So credit where that's due. Okay, let's do MVPs of the week. Mark, go ahead. Give me your MVP, man.
Yeah, I kind of wish that you didn't say it, but I'm going to go Luke Elzinga.
Great,
because he for as much as the defense played well as a cohesive unit, got everything done. Danny Stutzman, star-stud defensive line, everything you want. We hope Kip Lewis is going to be okay. Like I said, they're all put in that position because Luke Elzinga is able to flip the field. He has a long of 54, but an average of 44. That's just, he's putting the ball where he wants to. He is putting the defense in super advantageous situations, opportunities to make plays, get a safety, as Matt said. My MVP, Luke Elzinga.
Matt, who's your MVP, man?
Going the hometown kid, Jake Roberts. Went to Norman North, had dreams of playing for the University of Oklahoma. Obviously had to take a different path to get there, but obviously got his first touchdown reception. And then Mark mentioned it earlier, had the second big play where they ran the same play, moved the chains. So 3 receptions, 51 yards, and his first OU touchdown. Good to see the tight end room get back-to-back weeks with touchdowns. Even if it wasn't Bauer Sharp, it's Jake Roberts. So we see this tight end room continue to go in the right direction. But hometown kid, Jake Roberts.
That third down conversion he had near the end of the game was not an easy catch. That was a bad throw.
Yeah. Against the grain, against his body, incredible ways.
Massive play. It's gonna be overlooked just because it was kind of inconsequential. You still punted the ball away, but like that was huge. That was massive.
Well, hold on. To your point, I'm going to go half and then give an LVP to Joshua Bates, because what the hell are you doing, man?
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing, man? That you've played ball before. Yeah. Grow up.
Yeah. That was insane.
It is a high leverage, high stakes situation and a game that you're only up 4. Ridiculous.
So bad. Also don't know why the clock stops on that. But regardless, whatever. I think that's a weird
all
thing,
flags.
But,
do that. I think.
Yeah. Okay. My MVP is the foursome of the defensive line: DeJohn Terry, Grayson Halden, Jaden Jackson, and what are you looking at? Dominic Williams. What?
Little pause.
What'd I say? What did I say? Oh, pause. Okay, for the foursome. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm with you now.
Just ruined the podcast for that.
You're still here with us. Still here with us. Foursome.
So those 4 defensive linemen, that unit was great. And their coach should be really proud of them because they had a really good night. Okay, that's gonna do it. We'll have a pod for you midweek. Next week. Big game against Tulane at home. 2:30 kick. We'll preview the game midweek. We'll be back with you. Hopefully with Patrick. Back. We'll see. So we'll see you. We'll see you later this week. Matt, take us out.
Keep pushing it, baby.
3, 2, 1.
There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.